Good afternoon, everyone. We will commence the ceremony shortly. If you haven't already, please place your phone on silent. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's ceremony honoring Master Sergeant Raymundo Lopez, as he retires from the United States Air Force. On behalf of Master Sergeant Lopez, thank you for taking the time to share this very special occasion. Presiding over today's ceremony is Lieutenant Colonel Jeremy Smith. To begin our ceremony, I would like to introduce our very special guest. Master Sergeant Lopez's wife, or mother, Nancy, his wife, Crystal, and her parents, Estella and Mingo, as well as Master Sergeant Lopez's children, Jacob, Brianna, Donovan, and Amaya. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the arrival of the official party and remain standing for the flag of the national anthem. Estella, so please do this and I will walk an invitation.
Father, we just come to you today, this special day, this wonderful special day, to celebrate Ray's retirement, his ceremony. Father God, we just want to thank you for always being with Ray throughout his military career, Father God, giving him guidance and direction, wisdom, and keeping him safe, Father. Father God, we want to thank you for his wife, Crystal, his children, for always praying for him and always giving him support, Father. Father God, we just ask that you just continue to bless Ray as he transitions into this new phase in his life, Father God. Father God, we just love you and we thank you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Jeremy Smith, and I get the pleasure of leading the 625th Aeronautical Systems Squad. The reason it's such a joy is because I have superstars like that. We get to hand select out of the field. They come in with the expertise and the right mindset to be able to take care of the warfighter. So what I typically like to do throughout these retirement ceremonies is there's a handful of people here that know exactly what he does. there's probably the vast majority that he tells you a little bit about what he does. So I'm going to walk you through his career and try to explain it and break it down on why it's so critical that we have the superstars like Raymundo, Lopez Jr. Take care of you, should say. First, thanks for taking the time to come out today and actually celebrate this occasion where after 20 years, he's taken this uniform off the shelf or off the hanger for the last time and put it on his body. So it's an incredible thing. It's 20 years where he's been serving America. And I've had the opportunity to sit down and come on in and actually read through his records, enlisted performance reports, basically start in day one of a career of an enlisted member, all the way up to current. And I read through them, and what I really realized is what I've already known is that he is a rock solid performer. He's dependable, he gets the mission done, and he's driven, and I so appreciate that as his commander. He's a perpetual student, and I'll isolate through many of these talking points today, and I'll show you that he's been a student through and through. He's driven, he's thirsty for knowledge, and he's taken the opportunity to pull in educational resources and turn those into opportunity for himself and his family. I'm actually going to start with a little bit of a negative piece, though, because I think it's important to identify the single point in his career where he did not achieve perfection. And that was actually on his very first EPR. There's a grading scale. It's basically 1 through 4. And he received a 3 in communication. So Crystal, you can actually tell me if that's actually been improved since that point or not. But regardless of how he's doing that was the last time, it was his very first CPR, that he ever was downgraded on anything. Everything from beyond that point was what we call firewall, or the far right of he almost walks on water. So let's go ahead and walk through his career a little bit. So after tech school, he basically showed up at Offutt Air Force Base as Airman First Class Lopez. His job was a flight line maintenance technician, and is responsible to troubleshoot rivet joint mission equipment. So I think it behooves you to actually understand a little bit about what is a rivet joint airplane. So it's a large airframe. There's a lot of people that ride on the airplane, approximately 30 people. There's a flight deck, and then there's the mission equipment. If the mission equipment doesn't work, the flight deck doesn't have a reason to go fly the airplane. Lopez actually kept that mission equipment up and running. The mission of rivet joint, it's a tactical asset that's flying over the battlefield. It can hear what's going on down on the field and really direct and keep a good situational awareness of what's happening and relay that down to the ground, and then also to the combatant commander who can make decisions based on what rivet joint is hearing. So that's kind of the best way to explain what the airplane does. He was able to isolate problems and fix the problems so that airplane could actually be a viable resource for the commanders. His first EPR also included these words of Operation Enduring Freedom. That's Afghanistan. So that was 19 years ago that he kicked off. We're still in that fight today. Your whole career has been Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraqi Freedom, and a handful of other places. So throughout that career, you've done your best to keep America safe at home. Okay, here's a trend that started, and I'm going to keep highlighting these pieces. A distinguished graduate from the Flight Line Maintenance Technician Phase 2 course. So a DG in the world of the military is a very big deal. It basically says he's the cream of the crop. There is nobody better at this particular vocation in the school than he was. He was the best that there is. So that's an educational trend I'm going to highlight. During his time at Offutt, he also repeatedly received praise for his ability to troubleshoot problems and then also instruct others on how to troubleshoot those problems. So obviously the ability to communicate, showed room for improvement, and then you rocked it the rest of your career. Good on you. Sergeant Lopez, Staff Sergeant Lopez, reported the 390th Intelligence Squadron at Kadena Air Base, and I was in Japan. He started learning about electronic warfare systems. He became a journeyman. So basically, the training started to bring him up to speed and make him an expert on electronic warfare systems. He was his supervisor's go-to guy, meaning that basically his supervisor would consistently go to him and say, I've got a problem, you figure it out. He figured it out, and the supervisor didn't have a problem anymore. He started crushing a bachelor's degree while also becoming an expert in EW. So that carries that trend. Some of the pieces that he did in his job, satellite communications, faulty aircraft antennas, tactical data links, signal processors, broken, fixed. One particular bullet said he completed 600 maintenance actions without any ground aborts or safety incidents. What that basically means is that mission equipment in a rivet joint aircraft was ready to fly every single time that it needed to go out and do a mission. So the easiest I can liken it to what his job actually was is something. So I'm a Star Trek fan. So Geordie LaForge, the guy that kind of wears that visor, he's kind of a Geordie LaForge in the world of Star Trek: The Next Generation. Or it could be kind of like Q for James Bond, or maybe Alfred for Batman. Like some of those. Like he's the guy that is able to work with these very intricate, complicated systems, fix them, and then send them out for the warfighter to use. Sergeant Lopez, then, he left the 390th in Japan, and he went to Mainz, Costco in Germany. So he traded out that tropical location for, I assume, mountains. Pretty close anyways. So now he was an EW systems craftsman. So what that basically means is his training was done. He is now the expert. He is the subject matter expert to be able to work these EW systems. He also completed his Community College of the Air Force degree almost simultaneously as completing his bachelor's degree. So I'm not sure how he found the time to do school and do a lot of it. And that education is paying off. Let me talk a little bit about how fast he actually completed this bachelor's degree. So for his semester hours per year, the first year completed 9 semester hours, the following year 21, and then 15, then 22, and then 9, and it was done. So just absolutely knocked it out. Very impressive. Okay, so then Tech Sergeant Lopez comes back full circle, started at Lackland Air Force Base at basic training, and now he's come all the way back around. He comes to Greenville, Texas in December of 2010. So a good amount of time ago, he was the RC-135 Ground Systems Manager, responsible for 42 ground systems scattered all around the world. So he spent a lot of time TD1, is basically what that comes down to. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But then he started a master's program, so additional school. But in addition to that, some very high-level awards were handed down to him, which basically speak to he was doing an outstanding job on his school, and he was doing an outstanding job in his job. The 2011 Outstanding Information Ops NCO of the Year, and the 2011 Electronic Warfare Non-Commissioned Officer of the Year at the FMC. What that means is these awards, they come up, he selected the squadron, he selected the group, he selected at our division, and then he selected at the MAGCOM. MAGCOM is a very big organization, and he was the tops in both of those awards. Put on Master Sergeant in May of 15, and then he became responsible to what I liken to alphabet soup. So let me just rattle some of these off. The RJMT, the MCTS, the MTS, SACs, GUPS, and ACES. So all of these are ground systems that make the RC-135 rivet joint much more efficient, because not only can they work in the air, but they're also pushing information down to the ground for analysis. So with all of these things that he was responsible to, he was responsible to go to each of these locations and ensure that they were up and operational. That was the time that he really spent away. During that time, he had a brush with royalty when he briefed up and was commended by the United Kingdom's Prince Edward, who was the Earl of Wessex. So you can ask him about how that brush with royalty actually went. But he also earned the Air Force Material Command another MAGCOM award, the Air Force ISR Contributor of the Year in 2016, and then in his last UPR, the PEO, who is my boss's boss, selected Master Sergeant Lopez as number 3 of 50 Master Sergeants. So throughout your entire career, most people, if I had to kind of explain it, here's an x-axis, here's a y-axis, with this kind of being contributions, and this is time. Basically, most people would start kind of in that corner and then slowly climb like this. For contributions, as an A1C, he started out about the 3/4 point and then just continued to shred across time. It's been an unbelievable career. You're about to hear a meritorious service medal presentation where you're going to hear about 720 days TDY in approximately 3 years. So everything that I've just been talking about kind of explains a little bit about why he's been gone why he's been gone frequently. But I also think that it really explains how America is so potent on the battlefield, because the United States Air Force is really carried on the shoulders of senior NCOs who are willing to go out and take care of the mission. And for that, 20 years, you should be congratulated on your career exceeding well.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated during the presentation, declaration, and retirement orders. Master Sergeant Lopez Jr., please step forward. Attention orders. Meritorious Service Medal awarded Master Sergeant Raymundo R. Lopez Jr. Meritorious Service from 31 May 2017 to 30 October 2020. Master Sergeant Raymundo R. Lopez Jr. distinguished himself in the performance of outstanding service to the United States as RC-135 Life Cycle Logistics Support Program Manager. 645th Aeronautical Systems Squadron, 645th Aeronautical Systems Group, Intelligence, Surveillance, Reconnaissance, and Special Operations Forces Director, Air Force Life Cycle Management Center, Air Force Material Command, Greenville, Texas. During this period, Master Sergeant Lopez deployed a total of 720 days in support of depot-level maintenance operations, where he seamlessly integrated upgraded engineering and technology from 18 RC-135 ground systems in 8 sustained operating locations to guarantee 860 ISR pilot headquarters missions. Additionally, Master Sergeant Lopez spearheaded a $1.7 billion flood disaster recovery that included a $650 million infrastructure rebuild plan. Master Sergeant Lopez's oversight was critical in the successful relocation of 6 mission and training systems to higher ground and quickly restored 320 combat capability within 24 hours. Furthermore, Master Sergeant Lopez proved his immeasurable value to the ground training development cycle by delivering over $253 million simulator system upgrades that enhanced the Air Force training program for over 900 personnel, resulting in over 20 combat-ready U.S. and U.K. ground air crews. The singularly distinctive accomplishments of Master Sergeant Lopez culminated a distinguished career in the service of his country and reflects great credit upon himself and the United States Air Force. Lieutenant Colonel Smith will now retire as Sergeant Lopez Jr. Publish the order. Attention orders. Department of the Air Force, Washington, Special Order Number AC-016550, dated 18 June 2020. Effective 31 October 2020, you are relieved from active duty. 645th AESS, Greenville, Texas, retired effective 1 November 2020 for AFI 36-3203, integrated master sergeant. Sergeant Lopez will now receive the certificate of retirement in the Armed Forces of the United States of America. It reads, "To all who shall see these presents, greetings. This is to certify that Master Sergeant Raymundo Lopez Jr., having served faithfully and honorably, was retired from the United States Air Force on the 31st day of October 2020. Signed, Lieutenant General Robert D. McMurray, Commander Air Force Life Cycle Management Center, and General David L. Goldfield, Air Force Chief of Staff." Master Sergeant Lopez will now present a certificate of appreciation to Crystal Lopez. It reads, "Certificate of Appreciation from the United States Air Force. In grateful appreciation, the United States Air Force presents this certificate of recognition to Crystal Lopez for the commitment and numerous contributions that made a positive impact to the nation's defense. Thank you for the support which gave strength and purpose to Master Sergeant Lopez's service. Given his 31st day of October 2020. Signed, Lieutenant General Robert D. McMurray Jr., Commander, Air Force Life Cycle Management Center, and General David L. Goldfield, Air Force Chief of Staff." Crystal, will you please pin on the Air Force retirement helmet? Sergeant Lopez. There you go. All right. Stand here. So first, whenever I was going to do a speech, I was telling my kids, it's like, knowing me, I don't like doing speeches, so I was like, I'm just going to throw the deuces, thank y'all for coming. But since you guys got dressed up and put pants on, I'm going to go ahead and say something a little bit more elaborate. So last night, I was going to bed, trying to think of what to say, and my wife was sleeping next to me peacefully while I was up really late thinking about this, and I was like, well, one thing that I enjoy whenever I go to retirements is hearing stories of your Air Force career. So I started reflecting back on my Air Force career, and I was like, I started seeing stuff that if I would have took this route, I wouldn't be here, standing right here in this room right now. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and tell them, like, those paths, like, I don't know if you believe in fate or it's just luck, but if I would have took a certain path, then it would have led me somewhere else. So, like Commander said, I was in tech school in Biloxi, Mississippi, A1C Lopez, and I was there, and then it was a long school, so towards the end of school, you get a piece of paper at the end telling you where you're going. So I remember everybody's excited. You'll get this piece of paper, and it's like a lot of people are going to California, going to Florida, going to Germany. I looked at the paper, and it says, Offutt, NE, Nebraska. The first thing in my head was, where the heck is Nebraska? I've never even looked at a map and seen it in the middle of the U.S., so I was trying to get out of it, because there was a thing where you can trade with somebody. So like you're caught, your airman with you, you can say, hey, if you don't want to go here, I'll trade with you. But unfortunately, nobody wanted to go to Nebraska, so I got stuck to go to Offutt. So I got to Offutt, and it was our first base. And like these guys right here, they've been with me since day one. We were in school together, and we got to Offutt at the same time. Like I said, we learned really quick. We got trained on the aircraft. We were fixing aircraft, so we were like some of the top technicians there, but the only thing was there were some supervisors, like any place you work at, was bad supervisors. So they put a bad taste in our mouth. At that time, they had this program called force shaping. Force shaping is when the Air Force will allow people from the top and bottom to get out. So if you're close to retirement, they'll let you get out early. If you're on the bottom, just joining. If you want to get out, you can volunteer. I think it was a handful of us that tried to get out. I think Keith was one of them. And we tried to get out. We applied for it. We had this big idea that we're going to get resumes and go work for L3 and become rich. But the Air Force couldn't let us do it. So for some reason, they didn't let me get out. So I was stuck here. I was stuck in the Air Force, and I was like, man, I was kind of bummed out. But a year later, we got orders to Kadena. And I think Teddy was with me there. We both flew over to Kadena around the same time. So luckily, I got to stay in because Kadena, tropical sun, beaches, great food. I don't know why anybody want to leave, right? So I was there, met a lot of great people, did my job there, traveled. Life was good. We didn't want to leave. So we were there for 3 years, so we were trying to stay for another 3 years. So every week, the supervisor told me that if you apply for this, then it's a guarantee. You're going to get another 3 years, no problem. So I applied for it, waited, came back, said, nope, can't stay here. I was kind of mad about it because Teddy already got his approved, and I was like, why can't I stay? So at that exact same time, I got an email from some guy out of random. It was just an email said, hey, I'm from Germany. Your name came up on the list. You qualify for this, this, and this. If you're interested in the job, contact me. So whenever I got denied that, I contacted this guy named John Noha. And John Noha hooked me up. We got the job. I moved to Germany. Got to do something outside of the big safari program, away from aircraft. Kind of like a joint base, so I worked with a lot of civilians and Army. But I enjoyed every bit of it, and we're glad that we did because we met overseas. A lot of people don't understand, like when you're away from family, you have another second family, and it's the Air Force family or military in general. We have Marine friends. So everywhere we went, we met people, and we were glad that we went to Germany because we met a lot of great people that we still call family to this day. So we got there, and I did a lot of traveling as well there, not as much as I did here. So, but we got to travel, we got to see stuff. My kids got to do a lot of experiencing that a lot of kids don't get to do. So life was good. So out of the blue, this guy named Adam Hargrove shows up in Germany, and he was working here at the deck. So he came out of the blue, and he hit me up on what's social media before Facebook? MySpace. So he hit me up on MySpace, said, hey, I'm going to be in Germany. How far are you? I said, I'm about an hour away. He came down, we hung out, we talked about our jobs. He said, hey, there's a slot opening up down in Greenville, Texas, if you want to go. Of course, I'm from Texas, so I was like, yeah, sign me up. So he came back, told the supervisors, did the interview. I got hired on, came back to God's country. And probably one of the best units that I've ever been in. 645th, I've been here for 10 years, and these guys are like family to me. So I've had an awesome career here, and I enjoyed every bit of it. I'm glad we got to come back because we got to be close to family. So that's the end of my career. I'm here now, and if I didn't take any of those courses, if my friend John didn't hit me up on that email, I wouldn't be here. If they would have let me out, I wouldn't have been here. If I would have traded orders whenever I was in tech school, I wouldn't have been here. So for some reason, we got this path, and we're here, and I got blessed to be here for 10 years. So the last couple of months, my wife and my mom have been asking me, they're like, oh, they're trying to pick my brain, see, how do you feel about retiring? Are you excited? Or, what's happening with you? And at that time, I was like, it's not really a big deal because I love what I did. I've always loved what I did, so it wasn't a big deal to me. So I thought about it over and over, and I was like, it feels good to retire, but I was like, I don't feel any certain way about it. So I think it was like 3 weeks ago, I went to go get a cell phone, and I went to the store. A young man and a young lady were helping me. The young man, of course, he came up to me, and I'm in uniform, so he said, hey, sir, are you an Air Force recruiter? And I was like, oh, no, sir, because everybody here at Greenville thinks we're recruiters for some reason. I was like, no, sir, I'm not a recruiter, I'm a fighter pilot. So I was like, no, sir, I'm not. So we started talking about Air Force, and he's a young kid about to go to college. And he tells me, he's like, we get to the point where I'm telling him I'm about to retire. So I was like, 20 years, I was like, I'm about to retire and here in probably like 3 weeks. He goes, 20 years? He goes, that's a big commitment. He goes, really? He goes, that's a long time. So I was like, at that time, I was like, yeah, it is, I guess. He's like, I'm having trouble trying to commit to a 4-year college. He goes, so for you to do 20 years, he goes, that's awesome. So I started thinking about it then. I was like, it is a big deal. 20 years is a long time to commit to something. A lot of people want to do that now. And then plus, being part of one of the greatest air forces in the world, you know, it is a big deal, and it's an awesome accomplishment. So I'm pleased with it. Right after he said that, he messed the whole thing up. He said, 20 years, he goes, you've been in longer than I've been alive. So, I said, appreciate everybody coming to my retirement. I know it is a big deal, and I loved every minute of it. My family loved every minute of it, so it's just been great for us. So that being said, I want to give some gifts to the loved ones in my life that's been the backbone. So like a military member, a lot of times we forget that when we're gone doing our job, that there's somebody always going to be holding it down. So my person held it down with Crystal. She's been the mama to my kids. She's always been there taking care of home. So if she can't take care of home, then I can't do my job. So she made it very easy for me to be on the road, doing what I do, doing my job. So this is a gift for Crystal. Okay, so along my whole career, I had some people that followed me around, little kids and beats. So being on the road so much and her taking care of home, it can be a struggle if you know there's problems with the kids or whatever. But my kids have always been well disciplined. They never give a problem. So like I've really been blessed to have my kids with me throughout this career, and I got them some gifts to show my appreciation for being such great kids throughout my career. For you, baby. Yeah. These are my two babies, my daughters. I don't want them ever to leave the house. And to my two sons, Donovan and Jacob, please. In the Air Force, we give points to the men. Thank you. And a blessing to have you two guys. So another blessing that we've always had, especially living here, because my in-laws, they live 4.5 hours away, but my in-laws always been kind of our moral compass. They always, anytime if we were having troubles or just needed somebody to talk to, they were always the ones that we called and helped us out throughout the career. So I bought my mother-in-law a gift. Nico, please. And I saved the best for last. No, this is for Mama. So I wouldn't be here without her. She's always been a role model to me. She's a very strong person. She's very kind, and I've been blessed to have a mom like her. I see, like, whenever you're kids, you don't really look at your parents like you don't really pay attention to parents. But growing up and now that I'm older, like I watch my mom and like her work ethics and how she presents herself, and I realize a lot more. She's a very strong person, and she's a very hard worker, and that's where I get my work ethic from. She can work circles around most of us. Like, I have to tell her to sit down sometimes because she's getting me tired of watching her. So this is for my mom. Again, thanks everybody for showing up. Friends and family appreciate it. Thanks for being here for this momentous occasion. That concludes my presentation. You will now recognize Master Sergeant Lopez for his dedication.
So this is a montage from the squadron. Basically just has an American flag at the top. It's got a big Sparta coin, and then also a squadron coin on it. And basically it says, Master Sergeant Raymundo R. Lopez Jr., in recognition of your outstanding professionalism, dedication, and support towards the success of the 645th ABSS, the Big Sparta program, and the FMC flight test, 3 October 2000 through 31 October 2020. A warfighter supporting warfighters.
Ladies and gentlemen, Master Sergeant retired, Raymundo Lopez Jr.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the departure of the official party. We're on the formal portion of the ceremony. On behalf of Lieutenant Colonel Smith and Master Sergeant Lopez, retired, thank you for attending today's ceremony. Please join us for refreshments and fellowship immediately following the ceremony.